Some things really scares you. But fog is different. Fog doesn't just block your vision, it hides things. Things that have been waiting a very long time. 3 people thought they understood the world they lived in. 3 people were wrong. These are their stories. And if you are listening to this alone, you might want to turn a light on. Story 1. This is the story of Alex, a 26-year-old truck driver from Houston, Texas. And the night something got into his vehicle on a foggy highway and then vanished without ever opening the door. My name is Alex. I am 26 years old. I live outside of Houston, Texas. I work in logistics. I spend a lot of time in my truck on long stretches of highway where the only company you have is the radio and your own thoughts. I am not someone who believes in the supernatural, or I wasn't. This happened 14 months ago. I have not driven that road since. I don't think I ever will. It was a Tuesday in late November. I had finished a delivery run and I was heading back home. About a 90-minute drive on Highway 6. Flat land, no towns, just fields on either side and the occasional overpass breaking up the dark. It was around 11 at night and the fog had come in thick. Not the thin, wispy kind that just softens the headlights. This was the kind of fog that has weight. The kind that presses against your windshield like it wants in. My visibility dropped to maybe 30 feet. I slowed down, put my hazards on, kept going. That is when I saw her, on the side of the road. A woman, standing completely still. White dress, no coat, no bag. Just standing there in the fog at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night on a highway that sees maybe 6 cars an hour. I slowed to a stop. I rolled down the passenger window. "You okay?" I called out. She turned her head slowly. Her face was wrong. Not deformed, not monstrous, just off. Like a photograph of a face rather than an actual face. Like something that had studied what a human expression should look like and had gotten it almost right. Almost. She smiled. "I need to get home," she said. Her voice was flat, no emotion, like a recording. Every instinct in my body said, "Drive away." I didn't drive away. She got in the back seat. I watched her in the rearview mirror. She sat perfectly straight, hands folded in her lap, eyes forward. "Where do you live?" I asked. She gave me an address, a rural road about 20 miles ahead. We drove in silence. The fog thickened. My headlights were practically useless, just 2 white cones dissolving into nothing. I tried the radio. Static. I tried conversation. She didn't respond. I glanced in the mirror every 30 seconds. At the 15-minute mark, I noticed something. She hadn't moved. Not even slightly. No shifting in the seat, no looking out the window, no blinking. She hadn't blinked once. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Almost there," I said, more to myself than to her. She turned her head slowly and looked directly at me through the mirror. "You shouldn't have stopped," she said. My foot hit the brake instinctively. "What?" I said. She was still staring at me in the mirror. "He's in the road," she said. I looked up. There was a man standing in the middle of the highway, directly in my headlights. Tall, motionless, facing me. I slammed the brakes. The truck skidded. I braced for impact. Nothing. I stopped. The road in front of me was empty. Fog, asphalt, nothing else. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely put the truck in park. I turned around to look at the back seat. Empty. No woman, no white dress. No one. The door had never opened. I would have heard it. I would have felt the cold air rush in. She was simply gone. I sat in that truck for 20 minutes before I could move. Eventually, I pulled out my phone and searched the address she had given me. It came up. A farmhouse. Rural road, exactly as she described. I also found a news article from 1987. A woman in a white dress had been struck and killed on Highway 6 in late November. Walking home from a neighbor's house in the fog, a truck driver never saw her. She lived at that address. I don't know what I picked up that night. I don't know what warned me about the man in the road. I don't know if I would have seen him in time, but I think about it constantly. Was she protecting me, or was she leading me somewhere I was never meant to arrive? The fog doesn't scare me anymore. What scares me is what's standing in it. Story 2. This is the story of Maya, a 31-year-old woman from Portland, Oregon, and what she saw staring back at her from her neighbor's window every foggy night for a week. Until the night it stopped looking at the window and started looking at her. My name is Maya. I'm 31 years old. I lived on Birchwood Street in Portland, Oregon for 4 years. The kind of street where everyone knows everyone, where people leave packages on porches without worrying. I moved out 6 months ago. I will not say where I live now. My neighbor across the street was an elderly man named Gerald. 70s, retired, kept to himself mostly, but always waved from his porch, always had his lights on by 6 in the evening. Last October, the fog started rolling in off the river earlier than usual. Dense, heavy fog, the kind that made the streetlights look like floating lanterns. I used to sit by my window with tea and watch it. That is how I first noticed. It was a Wednesday, around 9 at night. I was sitting by my window watching the fog when I noticed Gerald's house across the street. His lights were off, every single one, which was unusual. Gerald always had his living room light on until at least 10. I almost looked away, but then I saw the shape in his window. Someone was standing at Gerald's upstairs window, completely still, looking out. I assumed it was Gerald. I smiled and lifted my hand in a small wave. The shape didn't wave back. It just stood there. I told myself he probably couldn't see me through the fog. I went to bed. I dreamed about eyes. The next night, same time, same shape, same window. But this time, the fog was thinner, and I could see more clearly. The shape was too tall for Gerald. Gerald was maybe 5'8", slight build. This figure filled the window frame completely. Broad, tall, head nearly touching the top of the window. I watched it for 10 minutes. It never moved, never shifted its weight, never turned away. It just watched. On the third night, I called Gerald. His phone rang 11 times. No answer. I told myself he was sleeping. On the fourth night, There were two shapes in the window. I knocked on Gerald's door the next morning. He answered, perfectly fine, smiling, invited me in for coffee. I asked him gently if everything was okay, if he'd had any visitors recently. He looked at me strangely. No visitors, he said, just me. I asked about the upstairs window. Who had been standing there at night? Gerald put down his coffee cup very slowly. Maya, he said quietly. I don't go upstairs anymore. I stared at him. Why not? I whispered. He looked at his hands for a long moment. Because something is already up there. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by my window at 2 in the morning, staring at Gerald's house. The fog was the thickest it had been all month, a solid white wall between our houses. And then slowly, it began to thin. Just slightly, just enough. The shape was at the window again, but this time, it wasn't looking at the street. It was looking directly at me. And as the fog shifted and thinned, and the shape came into focus, I recognized the face. It was my face. I moved out the next week. I have never looked in a window after dark since. And I have never, not once, looked in a mirror at night. Because I am terrified of what might look back. Story 3. This is the story of Daniel, a 34-year-old experienced hiker from Washington State, and what followed him through the fog on a trail he had walked a dozen times before. Something that knew his name. Something that sounded exactly like his dead father. And something that left his footprints, going back into the forest after he had already escaped. His name is Daniel. He is 34 years old, an experienced hiker, a rational man who spent 15 years in the Pacific Northwest exploring trails that most people don't know exist. He knows those forests, or he thought he did. Mount Rainier region, Washington State, early September. I had done this particular trail a dozen times, 12 miles round trip, moderate difficulty. I knew every switchback, every creek crossing, every landmark. I set out alone at 6 in the morning. The forecast said clear skies. By mile 4, the fog had rolled in from the valley below. Not unusual at elevation. I kept going. I had my compass, I had the trail. I had done this a dozen times. By mile 6, I couldn't see more than 15 feet in any direction. The trees appeared out of nowhere and vanished behind me instantly. The trail itself was barely visible, just a thin dirt line in the gray. I checked my compass, kept moving. That is when I noticed the markers were wrong. Trail markers. Those small colored blazes on the trees. I had been following the blue ones, always blue on this trail. But now I was seeing red ones. I had never seen red markers on this trail. I stopped, turned around. The blue markers were gone. In every direction, as far as the fog would let me see, only red. And then I heard the sound. Footsteps behind me. Not animal footsteps, not the random crunch of wildlife moving through brush. Human footsteps. Slow, deliberate, matching my pace exactly. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I walked 3 steps forward, 3 steps behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Fog. Trees dissolving into white. "Hello?" I called out. My voice came back to me strangely, too fast, like the fog was throwing it back at me from somewhere very close. Silence. Then, from somewhere in the white, a voice. Not answering my hello, calling my name. My full name, in a voice I recognized. My father's voice. My father, who had been dead for 3 years. I ran. I am not ashamed to say it. Every rational thought left my body, and I ran. The fog closed in as I moved. Trees materializing in front of me inches before I would have collided with them. The trail vanishing and reappearing, my lungs burning. And the footsteps behind me, keeping pace. No matter how fast I ran, they matched me. Not gaining, not falling behind, just following. Perfectly synchronized, like a shadow with weight. I ran for what felt like forever. And then I burst out of the fog. Sunlight, parking lot, my truck exactly where I had left it. I had emerged from a trailhead I had never used before. A different trailhead on the opposite side of the mountain from where I had entered. 12 miles of trail. I had apparently crossed the entire mountain in 40 minutes. That is not possible. I sat in my truck for a long time. When my hands stopped shaking, I got out and looked back at the tree line. The fog was thinning now. The trail entrance was visible, just a dirt path leading into the trees. There was something on the ground at the trailhead. I walked closer. Boot prints in the soft mud. 2 sets. Mine, leading out of the trees toward the parking lot, and another set, leading in the opposite direction, back into the forest. The same size as mine, the same tread as mine, identical in every way, except they stopped at the tree line, as if whatever was wearing my boots had simply stepped back into the fog and was gone. I don't hike alone anymore. I don't hike in fog. And some nights, when I am half asleep, I hear footsteps outside my window. Slow, deliberate, matching my heartbeat exactly. 3 people, 3 nights, 3 things that should not exist. And yet, Alex still drives Highway 6 in his nightmares. He just never arrives anywhere. Maya keeps every light on in her new home. But she has noticed lately that her reflection sometimes blinks a half-second too late. And Daniel told me he can still hear it sometimes. That voice in the fog. His father's voice, calling his name. The fog is not just weather. It is a threshold, a place between what is real and what has been waiting to become real. And the next time it rolls in outside your window, thick and white and silent, don't look too hard into it, because something might be looking back. Good night.